Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. If anyone out there has a story they'd like to share, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com, and that link will be in the description. If you want to contribute to help with the show, you can go to a link in the description called PayPal Me, and you can contribute to help with the show, and every contribution is appreciated. And I also have a Patreon account there, and I'll leave that link right below the PayPal Me. And you can go and contribute 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever you want to do per month. And it is very helpful. Right now, most YouTubers that have shows on YouTube, they depend on that kind of thing. So that's up to you. If you don't, just watch the show every month and every week and every time I upload, and it also helps. So God bless you and thank you. All right, today we have Scott, and we're going to talk about some Bigfoot encounters, and we're just going to start with that and see where that goes. So if you want to, Scott, give an introduction to yourself, tell where you're from, and we will get into your encounter directly after.
My name is Scott. I live in southern Indiana, southwestern Indiana. And this story, in October of 1984, I've always been a big archery hunter for years, decades. And I was 21 in the in October of 1984, and I was deer hunting on a ridge on my grandparents' farm. It was a ridge that was on the northern slope. And there was a old logging road running down from left to right in front of me, and there was a deer run going down it. Anyway, it was a cool but not frosty morning, starlit. I snuck in as quietly as I possibly could to my stand. I had pre-relocated the stand the week before, and I got to the climbing stand, and all you deer hunters out there understand those climbing stands from the 80s made a lot of racket. There was no way around it, but your stand is what you use to climb the tree with. So I made a lot of noise, and I went up in the tree. I had my bow on a rope. I pulled my bow up. I got out there early, and I was going to, let everything settle down a little bit before hunting started. But the sun was starting to come up. It wasn't light, but the sun was starting to show in the eastern horizon. Pulled my bow up, got settled, got my bow hung on the nail that I'd put up the week before, and just sat there for about 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, and about 100 yards in front of me, down the slope, down to the north of me, down the slope, I heard a racket it sounded like a huge raccoon coming out of a tree. If you've ever heard a raccoon coming out of a tree, they'll scrape their nails and they'll knock pieces of bark and things like that off. And it sounded like something coming out of a tree. And I was mad because this is private property. Nobody should be hunting down there. It sounded like somebody coming out of a tree. So I listen, and I hear branches breaking and snapping and just all kinds of rustling of leaves, and the sound is coming towards me, right towards me, and I'm like, some other hunters out here, we're going to get into a big throwdown out here because this guy's trespassing. So I wait, and this guy is making a hell of a racket. Just messing the whole woods up, breaking branches, rustling, not trying to be quiet at all, not acting like a typical hunter, and I'm getting madder and madder. Now, the leaves are almost all off, very end of October, and I'm expecting to see his light. No light. So I'm watching, no light. And I almost took my stand down the tree to wait for him. But the sound's staying loud. I can now hear really heavy breathing. Really heavy breathing. And this thing is still maybe 50 yards out. No light and this heavy breathing accompanied by all this noise. Okay, so I'm still pissed off, but I'm starting to think, my God, what's going on? It gets out about 35 or 40, and still no light. And I should be able to see a light by now. So I go ahead, and it was illegal then, but I always carried a handgun in the woods with me. And I turned 21 that May, and I carried a Colt Combat Commander 1911 with a 7-shot magazine, and you could safely carry that gun with a round in the chamber and the hammer back on a live round with the safety locked on. All the 1911 people know what I mean. Condition 1. I was carrying Condition 1. I pulled the firearm because I'm thinking, what is going on? At about 30 yards, approximately 30 yards, I'm waiting. Still no light. Still no light. Noise. Heavy breathing. Heavy breathing. This object now gets to the logging road where the deer run is. It is maybe 30 feet, 25 feet away. I can now see a vertical object. It is huge. Not so much height. My stand, I had my nail at 18 feet for my bow, so my butt was about 15 feet. I'm looking down at it. I would say the height was about my height. I'm about 6'5". It was 6'5", 6'6". But the bulk, this thing had the bulk of a refrigerator. It was huge in the chest. And it was so hairy. I mean, I could not get over how hairy this thing was. Long, flowing hair. I mean, like Willie Nelson, if he undid his braids, length on his head, but his whole body was covered with it. And I could make up his outline very well. I couldn't see any facial features. Well, I had the 45 leveled. I had it leveled right on it, and I had a flashlight in the other hand. And this thing, I could tell it was looking right up at me, and it made this huge sigh. It went, like, you know, he was really mad at me. It was like he was really pissed off that I was there.
And how far away was it when it did that, and you heard it that well?
25, maybe 25 feet.
Oh,
20 feet.
Only 25 feet? Oh my goodness.
He was close. Well, honestly, I always get my stand nice and close to the runs. I know a lot of people get way back, but I don't do that. I try to have my tree close. A lot of guys think I'm nuts, but I've killed a ton of deer doing this. So I like to be right on that stand. I mean, right on that run, that deer run. So I had that 45 leveled right at him, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm scared. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but it was upright. It was on 2 feet. So it does this little thing, and it's obviously pissed. And I got the light on. I don't turn on the light, and I regret, in a way, not turning on the light. But maybe that saved me because I had a 45, and I know all that. I would have hurt him, but I wouldn't have killed him. He would have killed me. I'd say this thing was 450, 500 pounds. It wasn't tall. You always hear about the 10-footers. It wasn't 10 foot. It was nowhere near 10 foot. It was 6'6", but man, I would not want, this thing was massive in the chest. Massive. So, he's pissed. I'm pissed. I had the gun aimed right at him. So, I suppose he thinks, okay, hell with it, he thinks, I suppose. He starts walking about up the way I got to my stand. You know, he starts right past me. He's 15 feet. When he gets parallel to me, there's probably a slight breeze, and I smell him. Oh boy, he smelled like if you clean out a hog barn in the summer. That's what it smelled, with that real ammonia urine type thing with the feces. It's powerful. Farm people will understand. That's what it was like. That's how strong he was. The smell. So then he goes back over my shoulder. I'm watching him, but he's getting back behind me, and he goes over the ridge, still dragging his feet, making noise, not trying to be quiet at all. He goes down the ridge to the other side. The sound gets fainter, fainter, fainter. Okay, so then it's gone. I stay there until I got good shooting light. I get my bow. I go down. I go out of the woods a totally different way. I make it to my vehicle, and I carry a Ruger Mini 14, which no one knows. It's like an AR-15, but made by a different company. It's the best way to say it. Very similar. It looked exactly the same in ballistics, things like that. I get 230 round mags, and I'm going to go back and look. And then a voice says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I don't go look. I didn't go look. So anyway, I have told 5 people until about 2 weeks ago. This was 34 years ago. I told 5 people about this encounter. My son got me listening to podcasts just a few months ago, and I started listening, and he knows I like Bigfoot. You know, we've talked about it. And so I got listening to some of the podcasts, and that's how I got here. The thing that always threw me off about this thing was how hairy it was. My gosh, it's so hairy. And I'm always used to seeing that Patterson-Gimlin film of essentially a very gorilla-ish looking animal. And this thing was just, it did not match what it should look like in my mind. Then I see they were talking about the book Them and Us and the type 2s, which were more prominent in some regions. I opened the book, or I got on the website. There he is. That's the guy I saw. That's the one, that hairy looking, nasty looking hairy thing. Like I said, he was in the tree. He spent the night in the tree, and I think maybe he was going to do some hunting, because down where he was, there's another good run down there. Maybe he was going to try to jump on a deer or something. I don't know, and I messed him up maybe. But that is my Bigfoot encounter. I've been 45 years in the woods, 45 years. I never saw any sign before that morning. I've never seen anything since. I'm in the woods just as much as I was then, but I'm always heavily armed with either a 12 gauge, a Kalashnikov, or an AR. I will not go out without one of those 3 weapons on me. I have no intention of making trouble with this animal or his species. I'm not going to be a victim though, but I would not shoot one if not provoked. I wouldn't dream of doing that. But I sure am not going to let him. I'm not going to be dinner. Let's put it that way. So that's the story.
Yeah. Wow. Now you say he was hairy.
Oh boy.
The hair was like a long around the head, right?
He had a real long hair, like a lady with long hair. Long hair. I mean down his back.
What about beard?
Long hair. I couldn't notice. It was still kind of, the light wasn't great. I didn't see his face per se, but I could see the way his head cocked. He was looking up at me. Yeah. But his body was covered with a lot of hair too.
Arms, legs, everything.
Yes, hairy animal.
Yeah. So he was really long. And what state is this?
This is southern Indiana. Anybody that knows the area, it's about 7 miles from Lincoln Boyhood National Memorial. It's only about 7 or 8 miles from there. It's in Spencer County.
And you're close to Ohio, where they have the Grassman. I think that hair helps them blend into areas that aren't necessarily wooded.
You look like
they can lay down on the ground. I mean, if they lay on the ground, you can't see them.
Yeah, I've heard that. I didn't dream that they would do like a crawl to conceal themselves. I didn't dream that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So that's the story, but it did change my life. I didn't quit going out, but I went out a lot more heavily armed.
And in the north too, it's a lot more cold. So
yeah,
being that hairy kind of helps you in the cold weather. And in the south, they tend to have a little bit shorter hair, and with kind of some long hair like around the arms and stuff like that. They hang down. Wow, that's incredible. But you said it looked like Us and Them.
That book, Us and Them, that's about Neanderthals. There's some pictures of like these hairy Neanderthals, what this author thinks they look like. One of the podcasts they had mentioned that, so I looked it up, and man, that's the dude I saw. That's him. Now I'll tell you, I'll say something else too. Everybody that wants to see one of these things, you need to think again about that. I mean, having seen one, they're there. I know they're there, but if I knew there was one on the other side of the ridge and I had my Kalashnikov, I'm still going the other way. I don't consider myself a coward either, but I don't see any reason to fight trouble. And this dude, these things are big in the chest. I mean, you can just tell this animal's powerful, you know?
All right. All right.
Well, one other thing I wanted to say, everybody talks about how, human features and all this. I didn't see a human. I saw an animal. But, you know, I still, like I said, I still never see one unless I was provoked. But I just don't intend on being a victim. I've been interested in this phenomenon for a long time, you know?
Right.
I suppose somebody like me who's out as much as I am is going to see. I have a lot better chance of seeing one than a person that goes out 3 or 4 weekends, a year, and only gun hunts for deer for 3 weekends. I mean, I'm out every weekend. I manage my farm for deer and turkeys. I'm constantly out, but it did change my life. I mean, it did. I mean, I'm probably a little bit more paranoid person because of it. Because if this thing wanted to kill me, oh man, I'd be dead. It didn't want to kill me for some reason. I'm not sure if that's because it knew I had a gun. I don't know. I have no idea. It was mad, but it decided to let me go. My parents are now a little bit more open to the idea because he saw one, and he reported to them. But yeah, I don't know anything about that really, except what they told me that a relative of ours also saw one about within 20, 30 miles of where this one was seen. My parents at their age are now acting like, this is the thing. I mean, it's really kind of surprised by that because my parents are very traditional, and they're accepting of this now too. So it's fine, you know. I was kind of worried about telling my parents, but here I am, 55 years old. I'm worried about telling my parents. I was worried my mom would try to send me to a psychiatrist or something, but they're very accepting of it. I said this Bigfoot thing, it's like it's not so. It's really getting. And I think that finding Bigfoot show is ridiculous. I mean, I can't think of a worse way to find Bigfoot and go out and make noise. It's cool to talk about Bigfoot, and it wasn't at one time, but now it is, and I think the show did that. But they took those little girls out in the woods in a Bigfoot area. Now, what if one of those little girls would have got snatched?
I know.
Now, come on, that's ridiculous.
They're lucky they suck at it because they come out there with camera crews and all that kind of stuff, and there's no Bigfoot's going to even come in miles for where they're at. And every once in a while when they go on individual investigations, they might hear a tree break or something, but they hear it for a second and it's gone.
Last year, was that your first encounter? Last year?
No. 3 years ago, I guess, maybe 4, was my first encounter with Bigfoot. That was when I got zapped. The year after that is when I had things thrown at me, trees pushed over, and I saw it. And then the year after that, I had some encounters with it from hearing the things pushing trees over, stuff like that. And then the year after that is whenever I went up into the woods and I saw what they were doing with those trees they were pushing over. They were building these fences and stuff and making these huge arches and all that kind of thing. And that was when it came down and grabbed a hold of me in my tent. And
is this all at Dale Hollow?
Yep,
all of it's at Dale Hollow?
Every bit of it, yes. And it wasn't until it grabbed me in my tent that it made me so scared that I really didn't want to. I haven't been back there since.
That guy in Ohio that got grabbed by one. What was his name? A guy he just died, or he probably died a long time ago. And I've just been listening to old shows. What was the guy's name? I've seen him on TV before.
I don't know.
He got snatched, and they were talking about Bigfoot outlaws. He got picked up. And the guy pulled his holster and fired, and the thing dropped him. That's too close. Yeah, touching me is too close.
Oh, yeah, dude. It scared me, dude. The thing reached in my tent.
Was it a big hand? I mean,
dude, the hand was so big when it grabbed a hold of my shoulder, his thumb was down on my back. down on my back, maybe 6, 8 inches. His fingers was on my chest, past my breast. You know.
Oh my God! He could just like flexed his hand
Oh,
and killed you.
he could have crushed me and pulled me out of there, but he didn't. He was just feeling me. That's what I'm saying. That he reached in. He was like, just give me like
Yeah.
three. He gave me 3 squeezes. It was like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Like he was feeling what I felt like.
Do you
And
think they realize that if they killed a bunch of people, that
yeah,
you know,
yes,
I
it
know
does.
the government goes after them, and I'm fine with
They
that
know not to kill people. Yeah, I know that.
because the heat comes on them. Then,
But they're so
yeah,
curious still yet. You know, you think about all the cases where I have on the show and everything, where they come to the windows and they watch people through the windows. They're seriously curious. You know, and when I went into their territory, looking around at their fences and their arcs and stuff like that, that was when they came down into my territory. Other than that, they never
yeah.
met. They threw stuff at me and things like that, but they never really did come mess with me.
Was that a campground? I mean, were there other
Yes,
people in the
yeah,
campground, or was it just you?
dude, it was a
God,
campground that I never. Every time I saw anybody camp at the particular site where I had the most activity, they were there for one night and they were gone.
they ran them out. They
Yeah,
didn't want them in there.
the people left. It was like I always wondered about that. It's like, because I would get there and it's like, oh man, they got my spot, and then it was like they would be gone next day. It's like, dang, what happened?
Jesus.
Yeah, and
And you know, the camp officials, the officials at the park know that. They know that.
yeah,
Hey,
I
let
would
me
say
tell you a
so.
story about the state of Kentucky. I got a guy that works for me. He used to be a biologist for the state of Kentucky. He was there the day that the state of Kentucky released 7 male and 7 female red wolves in the land between the lakes. They will tell you that is not true. This guy who works for me, he's a deacon in his church. He was there. He helped tag them as they were letting the pairs go. So they know all kinds of stuff they don't tell us. You know what I mean? They know all kinds of stuff. And the DNR and all forestry and all of them, they don't tell us nothing. They think it's for our own good. You know?
Whenever the deal happened, the famous thing where the family got killed and stuff in their camper, right?
I know where that campground was. I think they closed it.
There was someone that came forward and was talking about it. He said that they went, they had a kill team come out, went into the woods, killed the creature, and brought it back out on like one of the deuce and a half deals.
Yeah.
And he said that the thing had a dogman type creature,
Yeah.
but it had these these nodules like things on his forehead, like these lump things on his forehead, and it had 2 rows of teeth. It had 2 sets of
God.
ears. It had 2 sets of ears. It had a human ear, and above it had a dog type ear.
Here, I just told you, yeah, I mean, normally, 40 years ago, I'd have told you were nuts, but having seen what I've seen, I don't say anything's nuts.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, all this werewolf stuff they've had in Europe for thousands of years, where did that come from? Somebody just dreamed that up one day? No, there's probably a history of these animals
Yeah.
being in Europe, and now they're here. Or maybe they were here all along. I don't know.
The 2 sets of teeth, that's kind of Nephilim-like. It was like 2 rows of teeth. It had a sharp row of teeth and a human type row of teeth.
About land between the lakes, I told you we're only an hour and a half away. So my grandpa and uncle, when I was little, we always went down there and fished. We camped out. We camped out into Tennessee, though, not into Kentucky. That's where they always went. There was an old man. The government bought that land, but they didn't throw everybody off. The government bought the land from you, when you died, you had to leave. Well, there was an old man in the late 60s who still had a store down there, okay? I remember going into his store in land between the lakes, and he said this more than once. He said, "That's a fine-looking boy. You need to watch out for the wild men. They'll get him. They like to eat children." That's what he said. And I suppose I just thought he was a creepy old man trying to, you know what I mean? And I think everybody kind of just blew it off. But every time I went in there, he'd say, "You need to watch that boy around the wild men. They'll eat him."
Why would you ever do that to your customer base unless there was something to it?
Right, right. There was this old country store, and he had the store before, and then the government didn't throw him out. Most people left, but you could stay till you died, and this guy stayed till he died, and then they came in and bulldozed the store. You understand what I'm saying? There were people there in the 70s still who had sold out and were still there. Now, there weren't many, but yeah, but I mean, the government did not throw everybody out. They made it to where you probably didn't want to stay, but this guy had a store and he sold stuff to campers and stuff. And everybody kind of just laughed it off. You know, wild man, haha. You know what I mean? And I suppose I just thought he was just a creepy old guy. But, you know,
but
that's
you
what he always
you
said.
actually remember that, though, huh?
Well, yeah, I was like 7, 8 years old.
And you remember this guy saying that?
Yeah, and I think about 10 is when he died. So died, and they bulldozed his store. And now what's really funny about this is my farm is about 30 miles away. I'm east of the lakes.
Right.
But, yeah. Right. I got a feeling my neighbor down in Kentucky knows more than what he says, but he's not telling me nothing. The guy I got for a neighbor now, but he's an 80-year-old guy, but he knows more than he's talking about. I think people have told him he's crazy before, so he just shuts up. But, no, that's all I got.
When you talk to them people by themselves, they might like open up a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
I've talked to people from Kentucky, man, and they tell me crazy stuff about them being on their roof, hollering down their chimney, listening from their chimney, even, or standing at their windows watching. It's craziness, man, and you know, mimicking owls and all kinds of crazy creatures, and you know, yeah, and it's like the Bigfoot know where they're at when they're in their house. That's one of the craziest things. It's like they'll be in their house, they'll move from room to room, and the Bigfoot can tap on the wall where they're at. What's up with that?
To shoot a deer. I would be tempted to shoot a deer slug through the wall. You know, you listen to some of these people, and some people, I'm pretty hyper aggressive. You know what I mean? They mess with me, I'm messing right back. But some of these people take a lot of stuff off these animals. You know?
Yeah, well, they're not kind of sure at that point. You know, they're going through the house. They haven't really necessarily seen them that much, and it's like they're tapping on the wall, scratching on the wall, banging on the wall, stuff like that. But it's always like where they are in the room.
Yeah.
They'll hit the wall and they'll go for their gun, and it'll go and hit the wall where they're at, where the gun's at.
Our hearing was probably a lot better 2,000 years ago. You know what I mean? Before radios and TV and everything else has ruined our hearing. You know, our hearing was probably a lot better. Well, anyway, I tell you what I'll do. I'm going to write this paranormal stuff down, and I'll give you another email in a few weeks. You can look at it and see what you think.
Sure.
I've never listened to your ghost stuff. I've never listened to that, but I think some people are more open to paranormal things than others. You believe in skinwalkers? I've seen a skinwalker transform. I saw it.
I've got some stories coming up about transforming stuff.
I'm gonna take some time and write all this out, and I'm gonna get it back to you. I'll do the same thing I did with this, and I'll get you an email, and then I'll explain all of them. But there's several stories, and then you can do what you want with it. You know what I mean? You can call me or not, depending on if you think they're good or not. But I actually saw somebody transform into. I can show you what the dude is right now. He's still. I know the guy. And I've never liked him. All right, I'll make some notes. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.